Welcome to Seeking Numina, the Sacred Places podcast. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and today I am joined by a very special guest, somebody who I actually share ancestral lineage with, Fotoula Foteini Adrimi, who is the author of wonderful publications, but specifically today we are talking about Sacred Mysticism of Egypt, the ancient path of Heka initiation. Foteini is a director in the ISIS School of Holistic Health Limited, a school of healing arts, spiritual development, and inner transformation. The school teaches the path of the living light of Heka, the spirituality of the golden times of ancient Egypt. Fotoula received these teachings through direct revelation from the goddess Isis in 2006. Fotoula's other passion is shamanism, which runs in her blood from her paternal side. She is an active member of the Global Shamanic Teachers Network created by Sandra Ingerman and teaches shamanic practitioner courses and introductory and advanced courses in classic and core shamanism and from her Greek heritage. Since 1999, Fotoula has lived and worked in Scotland, UK. She's also taught in Greece, Germany, the Netherlands, and in China online. She has led numerous spiritual pilgrimages to Egypt and sacred sites in the UK. Her first book, The Golden Book of Wisdom, Ancient Spirituality and Shamanism for Modern Times, is an Amazon UK bestseller and an epitome of spiritual learning, mysticism, and soul evolution. And you can learn more at the ISIS School of Holistic Health.com, which you'll find in the notes down below in the description. Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites around the world, and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call? Chierte. Welcome, Fotoula. I'm very excited to have you here. Listeners know that I'm Greek and Egyptian, and sometimes they know, if they've been listening for a while or following me on social media, that my Egyptian side has been the hardest one for me to connect to because of, a lot of lineage trauma. My lineage is going back to the Coptics, and we are, I think about 8% of the Egyptian population, and we were victims of genocide when the Arabs invaded 1,400 years ago. And since then, the Greeks they really were the ones who helped the Coptics survive through to this point. And so the connection between Greece and Egypt is, I mean, you almost can't separate our magical history, especially when you go back to the golden times. So I'm very excited to have you here to talk about the sacred connection that Egypt and its golden times can be still felt, how it can still be felt today.
I'm so excited to be here and so grateful to be here. Thank you, Elise, for inviting me. And it's an honor to be on your podcast with all your history. And I mean, the combination of your lineage, Greek and Egyptian, is just magical, as you say. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you.
I want to jump right in. Tell our listeners about Zep Tepi, because I've never talked about it on the show, so they're probably unfamiliar unless they found it in other books, and I think that's where the best place to start.
So the ancient Egyptians talked about this time, this first time, and they said that this initial time, Zep Tepi, means the first time. I call it the golden time, and they call that too. This time far in the past was when the human beings were like gods on earth. And what did they say? They say that when we die, we become that again. We become that infinite spirit. But during that first time, we were like the living spirit. We were in a body. We had the incredible ability to self-heal. We didn't need language. We could operate telepathically. We could hear the earth, the plants, the animals, everything. We worked with incredible technology. We didn't need fossil fuels. The energy was coming from the ether. It was etheric energy they used to create what they created in the pyramids. And they were so connected with the stars they came from. They knew we were not really here from the earth. We are beings of light who came to the earth, answering an invitation from this planet to come together. all of us from different places and work together and create this human race here. But they were so aware. They had incredible spiritual or psychic powers that now we only can get a glimpse of. And especially their spirit was so vibrant, and is still, our spirit is so vibrant, but they were living the truth of their spirit while we are living the truth of our conditioned mind. So they lived very much in harmony on the earth, in respect to all life, to themselves, and they created magic. If we could see them, we would think these are gods, these are magicians, these are incredible beings. And they are not humans, but they were humans. And they could self-heal their bodies. They had all these abilities. And the ancient Egyptians talk about this time in their writings, in their sacred papyri, saying that this first time is where we came from. And then, of course, the consciousness fell. And this is where we end up now. And we are starting to remember again. And the golden times is where we can go back. So you find this term of the first time or the first era in other traditions too. So in the Sanskrit tradition, they speak about the Satya time, which is similar, the time of human beings having incredible powers, being so aware, being enlightened, being able to ascend. There is no death. This is the time that the spirit of the spirit that is within can transcend without going through the portal of death. And then we lose that because we lose the consciousness. So we don't know how we can transform our body into light again and go back home. We are carrying the weight of karma. So we incarnate and reincarnate. And now is the time, in this lifetime especially, during these times of transition, to wake up again.
And I think that's something that's really been a grounding truth for me lately. You know, we talk about the age of Aquarius and people get really literal and they're like, okay, when does it happen? January 1st, 2022? Does it you know, and we want to map it onto something tangible. Our conscious mind, once, you know, like you said, our consciousness fell into this logic place where we question spirit. But I firmly believe that this age of Aquarius, it's going to take, you know, 50 to maybe 200 years to feel settled. We're in a wobbling transition period of a period that lasts over 2,000 years. So that transition period will also be long, like 50 years, like 100 years. But we are in it. I was thinking about it this past weekend. I was at a festival called Temple Fest, and one of the presentations was on how were those ages in the past informed by the eras. So Aquarius is an age of, you know, being more influenced by finding the people that you resonate with, we're less interested in the age of Aquarius in a one truth, in monomyth. And Pisces wanted monomyth. So of course we saw the rise of Abrahamic religion and Christianity and dominance, you know, hierarchy. Because people think of Pisces as the way Christopher Penczak presented it in his talk on Sunday was he said Pisces isn't just two fish coalescing, it's actually one on top of the other. So hierarchy is part of Piscean drive. It's part of the way that's influenced. When Zep Tepi was, would have maybe even been the time of Leo, or it could have been even further past that. It could have been Cancer. Have you ever thought of that, like how astrology maybe informed Zep Tepi? Because if it was Cancer or Leo, of course, of course we'd be more emotional. We'd be more light bringing.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think it is Cancer and going into Leo, and Leo is also part of it towards the end of it. Leo, you have Leo there for sure. But the Cancerian side is the sacred feminine, and there we have the Divine Mother, the Divine Mother, Hathor, who gives everything to the people, who offers, you know, her divine love, so everybody feels at home. And the sacredness of the feminine, and that goes then into the Leo, which is like the leadership and construction and creation, and putting, you know, what we have, the abstract in Cancer, putting it into stone and creating the structure where you could say, here is how, is manifesting from, if you like, the philosophical and the watery into, the energy and the fire and the technology
Action.
and
Yeah.
action. Yeah, yeah.
And I
So I,
think too, it like when I think of the transition, what comes to mind for me is actually Mesopotamia and specifically the reign of Akkad, when Enedwana was writing her sacred poetry with Inanna and channeling. I believe that those poems were Inanna's words through Enheduanna, her high priestess at Ur, and her father was Akkad who was, patriarchally in kind of inventing colonization in a way we'd never seen before. He was building cities and then taking over smaller tribes under that. And Inanna was warning us against this. And I think it's interesting that it coalesced with written word coming in as authority. And I think that's part of the struggle that our modern consciousness has with trusting spiritual revelation that comes through trance or dream work or comes through experience of ritual and ceremony because it's not written down. It's not verifiable. There's no footnotes or sources to go to. But why do you think we need that? How or maybe to phrase it as a more useful question, how do we get back to that trust with spirit?
yeah, so basically, the spiritual work is one of experience. We need to open our senses and to accept what we feel and experience, seeking the experience, because it's not the words, that the information that is going to change us. Information never healed anybody, really. It's the experience of the energy, of the high vibrational energy, of the connection and the communion with the enlightened self and the enlightened beings who are teachers. I feel the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses are teachers, and they are guiding us still. They are very close to us. They are so close to us, and they are guiding us still into our path of soul evolution. So I feel to walk this path, and it is a road less traveled, and it doesn't have signposts. We have to drop into our heart and into our inner knowing, because especially with Egyptian work, the ancient Egyptian work, the energy is so powerful. And people come and they come to the workshop and they say to me, yeah, but nobody knows about these things. So if nobody knows, it's like immediately you're putting it down, because it's not many books written about something like that. We don't know about the ancient Egyptian mysteries anymore. There are lots of books written about other things, but it's hard to find the authority that speaks about something like that. And I say, but don't you feel the sacredness during the practice, during the ritual? You said how you felt at home, but then the mind comes and says, well, where are the authority figures who are speaking to me and saying you should do this? Now we are at the time where we really need to drop into our divine heart that is wise. And otherwise, we're just going to keep following dogma and make up more dogma. And now we have to really say, I need to find my power out of that. And to do that is not to just go out and say, I'm empowered, I'm talking my truth, I'm fighting this, I'm fighting that. It's only me. It's about really dropping into your wise heart, dropping into the wise heart and saying, what is the truth of my spirit? And
It's
that,
beautiful.
yeah, that is what changes us. And when we have the experience and we accept the experience and we keep diving into that inner self, then we change. We really change. And the things that have triggered us before or pulled us out of our path are not as strong. So there are some people who work with me that they say, I don't know why. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. My friends ask me, why are you doing this ancient Egyptian stuff? Why are you doing this? And I don't know. The truth is, I don't know, but I keep coming back because my heart is bringing me here, and I can see the change in myself.
Yeah. And that's it. It's enough proof if we need proof. to see how it changes our lives
Yeah.
from the inside out.
Yes, yes, yeah. Our lives, the path that we walk, the spiritual path becomes more important. So before, of course, we might have had other dreams, things that we thought were important. And now all of a sudden, it's like the most important thing is for me to be working spiritually, to be doing the rituals, to be in communion with my spirit, with the earth, with the beauty, and there is a calmness, if you like.
Mm.
And the mind stops chatting all the time, but the energy is helping us to do that because we're diving into the sacredness of who we are more and more, and it's that sacredness of who we are that becomes the most important thing to nurture in our life.
I would like to ask you to define for our listeners out here, our viewers on YouTube as well, what is Heka?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. So Heka, when the early Egyptologists, in the 19th century, let's say 18th, 19th century, went to Egypt, tried to figure out what is Heka, because Heka comes from the goddess Isis. So it is her who bestows Heka to her initiates. She is this being of Heka. And so they said at the time that Heka is witchcraft, magic. They try to figure, they put their Western mind uh, onto a culture that they didn't understand. They try to analyze it that way. And now they agree. If you look up Heka, you will see that it says power of creation and not
Mm.
witchcraft or magic. So Heka is the power of creation, and this is how they defined it. They said that out of the abyss, the unmanifested state, if you like, the energy, this light, flows through and creates the physical and spiritual realms, creates everything we see and we don't see. And that light is Heka, is that power of creation. And then when the initiation takes place into the mysteries, Isis comes and bestows Heka to the initiates, so they are the channels. They are able, to the degree they are able, depending on the evolution of the soul, to work with Heka, to work with the power of creation for the highest good, because Heka is like divine power. We cannot control it with our ego. We can only work with it in divine order, which means that my intention and the order that is creates and sustains this universe are aligned. So when that happens,
Mm.
then I can manifest for the highest good.
That's beautiful. I like how you described that as alignment with the energies of the universe because I think that's what connection to land gives us. You know, like you said, we are of this earth, but we also are of the cosmos. We are the stardust that created the universe. We are still that original light. That is still who we are. It's who we are at our core as our soul, but it's also what our bodies become when we decompose. And then, in our next body, it will become the same. And we just are part of this deep cycle of time. And I think one of the biggest fallacies of the monomyth culture of the past few, really only the past 2000 years, it's so new. It's so new to view time this way as linear, as a march of progress, where any of these myths of just linear moving forward only. The biggest fallacy the biggest disservice that fallacy gives us, I think, is thinking that it's us, that we have that it's our idea, that it's our mind that makes the choice or that moves forward or when we recognize the cyclical nature of our involvement with the universe, we get our ego out of the way. I honestly sometimes think of the ego. I don't think it's a bad thing. We need them. They evolved, I think, to help us escape from, uh, you know, beasts in the forest and all kinds of things that it used to be very useful for, but it's been misappropriated because we don't have those same threats in our modern world. And so it starts to jump in the way of things that are perfectly healthy for us, like spiritual connection or like trusting the universe. And it literally jumps in the way. And so the energy that wants to flow through us can't. But when we connect to land, the land is so comforting and so basal, like, truly in the sense of foundational, neutral, grounding power, that it just lets the ego come down and then that energy can start to flow. And then we do connect deeper to the cosmos and all those other things. And I think that's the connection people don't always see. They're like, oh, you work with the land, so I guess you don't work with deities, or I guess you don't work with the cosmos, or I guess you don't follow astrology either. And it's like, no, that's the land is part of this cycle. It's like this. It's not either or.
Absolutely, absolutely. We answered the invitation to come to the earth, to be part of this world. And it's an honor for us to be here. And we bring the gifts of our radiance to this world, but the earth gives us so much. And the earth, I think, actually, the land, if you like, is actually at the moment, and that's why people can really calm their mind when they are out in nature, is because the land is of a higher vibration than the level of the human consciousness that is around right now.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Like it is working against our negative impulses, even when we don't put the intention out there for it to do so.
Yeah, because you can see how the earth regenerates, how the earth is showing us everything is a cycle. There is death, there is rebirth, there's the descent to the underworld. All of that is part of life, and you are part of this life, and you need to be here, not somewhere in a fantasy world. And these deities are saying you have to be the living light, you have to be the spirit in a body. That is what is called the living light. It's like
Mm.
being in your body as the infinite spirit. It's not being somewhere else away. It's be here. When we die, we become that infinite spirit anyway, but the journey is actually to bring all of that here. So yeah, I absolutely agree, Elise. Absolutely. The earth, in ancient Egypt is seen as this incredible power that is death and life at the same time. And these are the mysteries of Osiris, the mysteries of death, because Osiris is portrayed as a green Osiris, the power of the soil, the subsoil, where everything grows out. It holds all the seeds, and then it gives that power, that life force energy to the plants, and then from the plants to the animals and all of us. So is that power of life. And then also the white Osiris, who is, death, the dead person in the mummy and going through his journey. So the same being is death and life, and that the connection is the earth. Yeah.
Mm. Let's talk about that actually, about the earth. Why is Egypt called Kemet?
Yeah, the black land, the black land. Yeah. And it's so fertile. I think, even without remembering, but I think Egypt in those times must have been the most wonderful place to live. It was said is the land of the gods, because you have there uh, great weather. It rains 8 days or something a year still. Well, me living in Glasgow right now, I so appreciate that. Can you imagine? And you have the Nile, the place of life, life force energy, abundance of water, abundance of everything. And then it floods and it brings all the silt to the black land, to this land. So you don't have to work hard. That nature does it for you. The Nile gives it to you. And they worked and they had all these festivals. I mean, if we had the same amount of holidays the ancient Egyptians had, It would have been a wonderful time. Here you get, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, holidays a year. Well, they had 3 months plus weekends and everything because they didn't need to work hard. The Nile gave everything. So it was really a land of plenty, and also you have the desert, and the desert is the absence of life. So in the same place you have the abundance of life and the absence of life. So the spiritual path is part of both. And in the east bank of the Nile, you have the temples of the sun, the temples of life, the temples of the day, the temples of the awakening. And then in the desert, you have the temples of the moon, the temples of the night, the temples of death. So you have both at the same place, a bit like life and death. They're coming together in that special place. So the black land, for me, it means the rich land, the sacred land, the deep land, the darkness and the light, and that out of the darkness, so much richness can come to us.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any specific sacred places you could share with our audience that you can still feel that ancient connection of land in Egypt?
There are so many. There are so many. Um, I love the temples in Egypt, and they have very different energies depending where you go. Um, and also, they some of them are, kind of energetically closed unless you go there to do ceremony work, unless you go with that intention. So, one of my favorite temples. Somebody once asked me, what is your favorite? He was an Egyptologist. What is your favorite temple? And one of my favorite temples is the Temple of Luxor. And people say, why? I don't understand. Why is your favorite temple? It's not the biggest temple, but the unconditional love that flows inside this temple is just amazing. It's just amazing. When the temple is open and it's quiet and you can go through to the Holy of Holies before you go into the open um, the last room that is open to the elements. Before you go to that, there's a colonnade um, place chamber, and in there is so much incredible love. That is like the lotus flower.
Mm.
It really is really feels like coming home, and other people have noticed this. It's also the temple of eternal life, and there is at the very back of the temple, sometimes there are it happened once. There was the first time I went to Egypt, there was an Egyptian master, if you like, teacher there from local person who showed me the places of power, and how he said this is a place of eternal life. And he said he still helps the people come into contact with the Ankh, being the Ankh, being that human body, but it's the eternal body at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I think my favorite temple I remember really having a deep connection to was Karnak, which isn't far from Luxor,
Yes,
really.
yes.
And it's the same, it's very different. It doesn't feel, I think
Mm.
people we make the mistake in modern culture because distances are easily traveled. We think of things as being closer to each other than they are, whereas the ancients of Luxor probably never would have ever gone to Cairo. They would have never seen Giza. Maybe they didn't know about it. And of course, they were in different time periods as well. So we kind of really forget how long Egypt
Yeah.
reigned as a pharaonic era. Karnak had something different. It doesn't feel like anywhere else I've ever been, but it feels like a place of light. Like that was I was very young when I went. I was I think 14, and I was already on this path. I was very blessed to have a spirit guide with me consciously since I was 3. So she was always guiding me. She kept me safe as well from diving too deep into certain things that would have not been permissive in my childhood, with my parents and the Orthodox Church and all those things. But she kept me connecting with nature, and she helped me understand specifically the light that you can connect to in Karnak. That was what I remember is feeling. We were there actually in the evening as sun was setting, and we went for one of the light shows that they do on the temple.
Yeah, nice.
And yet I remember it as a place of warmth and light. And I have to really look back at the pictures to remind myself it was nighttime because it felt like the sun was shining on me the whole time.
It's a very strong place. Karnak is a very strong place, and I love Karnak is so vast. It's so vast.
It's unfathomably big. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think that is for me is very serious. Like it has that almost like this is serious now. You went into the luxury, the unconditional love, but here is proper work. Here
Mm.
you know the mysteries are practiced here. Here is just like everything is so it's like really real spiritual work and serious, and I felt that very much with Karnak. And Karnak is really incredible. There are so many gems in Karnak. A lot of people go to the Sekhmet place where you have Sekhmet the destroyer but also the healer in her chapel, and now it's so much easier to go there. And again the local people allows us to do ceremony there, which is wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. And in Karnak I met a few years ago. It was this amazing guy. He was a local person there and doing healing work, and he saw me. And then I was like, trying not to be too obvious, because I was just there with my friend, and we were just doing a little bit of connecting in the temple. And he just said, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then afterwards he said, come. And he took me to a place which is close to the public, and he said, meditate here, because he said, see what comes up for you. And there was all of a sudden this past life at I didn't want to see. I thought something really bad happened to me at that life. I felt not the nice life. I don't know where that life was. I just didn't want to see, but I could feel the pain in my body. And he came back and he said, now I can do the healing. May I do the healing for you? And I said, yes, of course. And then I could feel him taking all the pain and going, this is so big. This is so big. And then he did it. And I said, I'm so grateful. And then we went at the side of Karnak, still within the side, and he had this little pot and made me a cup of mint tea. And I thought, how wonderful that these people are really connecting and still in service. That is just amazing. They're still in service after thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's surprising because, Egypt, especially in I guess lower Egypt, but in Cairo, they're very, well, Islam came in as a colonizing force, and so it did its job well. So it can feel very difficult to, like for myself as an Egyptian, I even struggle to say that because I don't feel very drawn to Egypt, modern Egypt culture, and I don't feel very safe. And I don't know if I actually do wonder if I have more past life knowledge to uncover, because it almost feels bigger than just my genealogical kind of hereditary wounds. But yeah, it really warms my heart to hear that you are finding locals that are still connecting.
yeah. And also I found them in other places. In Abydos. Abydos temple is also a very incredible temple of Osiris. It's one of the most beautiful temples, but it's very alive. This temple, you cannot put a foot wrong. It's like you have to be very respectful, and to the spirits, to the rituals, to the information that's coming through. and and there's a local person there who does spiritual work, and he took us around, explained to us how the rituals were done, and what are the PowerPoints, and everything he said was just so beautiful and really resonated deeply, because there are people, of course, who think, okay, I can maybe earn a few, I don't know what they have, lira there, a few Egyptian lira, uh, but no, there are genuine people who are there, and people know that they're there and they do this work. But it's also part maybe of a small place in the culture. They've always been there, but they say officially there is nothing like that happening here,
Yeah, yeah,
as the
which is
official
fine.
line. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's great. I think we have to, unfortunately for now, I think it is better to keep it that way. And I think it's also a testament to the mutual respect that visitors have for those people that they are keeping it that way. Nobody's whistleblowing anybody. And I think that that strengthens our light and connection as well to know that we can like in witchcraft, in modern witchcraft, we have a expression, perfect love and perfect trust. That's the foundation of Western witchcraft. And I always try to come to the world with that phrase, even in my shamanic work, even in my work with, ancient Greek and pre-ancient Greek. Really, like my most present work now is with before the written record, even before the Mycenaeans, who was here, who was working with the land, and what were they doing. And I still feel that that says it all, to come to things with perfect love, not perfect because it's flawless, but perfect because it's whole. Love that is unapologetic and complete. And then that trust feeds the rest. When we can know that that love is enough of a foundation to then trust the spirits and then trust each other, the ones who are connecting to those spirits and can help us deepen our personal connection and we can help them deepen theirs. It's a tandem effect of support that just we need it. We really cannot do it on our own.
yeah, yes, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting that you're connecting to the pre-Mycenaean, pre-Greeks as we know them now, in Greece, because you're connecting back to a much more enlightened time and higher consciousness than what happened, in the years that followed. And it's one place that I love in Greece. I know it's not in Egypt, but in Santorini, you have Akrotiri. Uh,
Yes. I went on my honeymoon. My husband was like, "Oh, we're going to Santorini. We'll do the beach." I said, "Yes, but we're really going for Akrotiri."
yeah, yeah. And when you walk there, you can feel that this is a place of higher consciousness. It's a city that was basically covered, as you know, by the lava of the volcano. But did they find any bodies? No. People left. People knew to move on. People went. It's not like Pompeii, because people are aware of the earth, the rhythm of the earth. They are aware of the whole of the place, that the sea is speaking to them and says, it's time for you to go, because the fire is coming. They know it. They don't find it. The archaeologists don't find any bodies.
Yeah, it's the only reason I think Akrotiri is less well known than Pompeii is because there's no bodies. It's not macabre enough for the modern sensibilities. And and what really struck me about Akrotiri as well is the priestesses, the queens. They were a matriarchal society, and they had an earthquake. They had a vision. We think that there was a longer prophecy that said the earthquake would be your warning sign. The other theories are that the earthquake was what prompted them to do this ritual to figure out that there was more coming. So after the earthquake was when they left. So they took the warning from the earth. The earth literally warned them. And I think about that a lot with today. We have the earth warning us again and again and again of what not to do. One of the other things I've been thinking about as we enter and solidify ourselves in the age of Aquarius as well. One of my teachers he's a witchcraft teacher, Ivo Dominguez Jr. He gave a talk at this festival I was at Temple Fest, and he said that in Aquarius Doors that are opened by spirit stay open longer. It's not like Piscean energy where things want to return to a stasis. They want to return to a oneness. If we open a spiritual door, if we have connection, it stays open longer. It's easier to connect to the spirit realm. The land is easier to communicate. And I thought of that right away as, oh, of course, that's why we see these. Of course, humans are causing it too. But it is the earth's expression of itself. It is speaking up for itself, and it's going to get stronger, especially the less that humans acquiesce in that alignment. It's a disalignment that's causing it.
Yeah, the earth is transforming too. We are all transforming. We're all changing skin, and the earth is changing skin as well. And is trying to say to us, you know, be aware, bring balance, bring the scales of mud. Mud is obviously in ancient Egypt so important, the rule of mud, to live a life of giving and receiving. And the ancient Egyptians did make offerings to the earth. Not that the earth needs offerings, but it's a way of saying thank you. Thank you for all this beautiful abundance, this miracle of life. And the main offering that they give, you know, is the lotus flower, which I think is just wonderful. So they go and gather the lotus flowers and make garlands and put them in the temple. And it's like how many lotus flowers you make, and then they make the perfumes and the incense out of that is divine too. It's just so beautiful. And this incense tradition you still have kept through the Coptic Church. And it's the same in Greece. We had the incense tradition of the Greek temples, as you know from your lineage too. That you know you have there, and you continue, and you can feel it. You can feel that this incense is a spirit. It's not just a perfume. It's not dead like something. But times you buy a perfume, doesn't matter how expensive it is, but it's dead. You know, you light this incense and it's alive. There is a spirit there that is very old, helping us to come into a higher state.
And it can help, I think, to remember for those listening that Christianity, it has evolved in different ways, but it really, in its core, when we look at the original Christianities like Coptic and Orthodoxy, and even to a lesser extent Catholicism, there is still it's not linear time. It doesn't mean that those things came and ended pagan practices and polytheist practices and whatever we want to call ancient belief in land and light and connection. It actually just transmuted it in something different. And it's been transformed into ways that can be unrecognizable in places like the United States. But it's still part of that cycle. It will cycle back. It's not over. It will just cycle back.
Yeah, I think so. We are now in that cusp, in that transition time, as you said. We don't know how long it lasts and how what it will bring to help us shift to the next stage. But we are in the journey. And we can see it in our personal journey for those people who walk a spiritual path and the back and forth and then coming back again into their path and making that choice to follow their path day after day, because it's a choice we have to keep reaffirming to ourselves. So it is that transition time, and it can be a very unsettling time, both for the earth and ourselves, you know, the changes that are taking place. But it's part of our evolution. And if we surrender to the flow of life, I think we will find our place, and that river will take us where we're meant to be. I never planned to be in Scotland. I never had no wish to even be in Scotland. I didn't even know much about Scotland at all, but I have been here now more years than I've been in Greece, and I know it's because of this river of life that said you have to find your spiritual path, and you can't find it at home. Because of the orthodoxy and everything else, you have to go to a place where you're able and you're free to really go into your spiritual work. And this is what I have done.
Thank you for sharing that because I also, this past year, was called back. Actually, I don't always admit to this, but I was called, even in Greece, Greece told me, You can't do it here. You can do a lot here, and we have a lot for you, but you can't build community like you are meant to build it here. They're not ready. And I tried. I did. I tried to start groups. I tried to host events for the Greek people, really accessible things. I was on the board for the Athens Irish Festival because that was even though it's an Irish festival, it was a place where a lot of alternative communities came. And I did meet people who identified as witches, pagans, light bringers, but they were too afraid to gather under that umbrella. So we needed something else. So we did Irish music. We brought over Irish musicians. And they're still doing the festival there. I'm still in touch with the board and all those things. But I still, even when I had them in one room for something else, I said, okay, well, why don't we get together and do something for the equinox? No, it's not safe. No, I can't risk it. Oh, what if somebody takes a picture and posts it and then my yaya finds out and blah, blah, blah. It just wasn't something people are ready for yet. But we are doing the healing, you and I, by doing what we do where we can do it, by healing the people, not that we do the healing for them, but by helping people have the tools to do the healing for themselves and to find their connection, it is spreading out. It is a network, it's a web of healing that will reach Greece. It is reaching Greece, it's reaching Egypt, and it's healing our lineages so that I think even the new children being born in Greece are part of that healing.
I absolutely think so. Absolutely think so. And even if we think, how we were born into a certain families and we were born because we needed that lineage and that connection. But we were born in a place that was so restrictive. And I, as a soul, did not have that experience before. Before I was like, encouraged to do the spiritual path. And now I found myself that I'm in a restrictive environment and there is only one way. And but I think we have prepared the ground for the next wonderful, amazing new children. This is the future, and they are coming in, and they are so wise already, and they're not buying into the dogma. Now the children are saying there was like a story from a French child, and he's so much connected to the cosmos and the Big Bang and everything and life here on Earth and how it all started. And when he heard the biblical stories about, the paradise and God sending them away and all of that stuff, he basically said to his teacher in primary one, he said, do you really believe that stuff? I mean, you're telling us that that's how we were made, just out of clay, and then you cut a bit of the man's rib and you make the woman. Do you really do you actually believe that yourself? And I thought he's primary one and he's able to say that, and it's so obvious to him. And now, if we were in my generation, you couldn't say anything like that. And a lot of people are still afraid to say, to go against, what is the established dogma. Because,
Yeah.
as you said, the elders might find out there might be repercussions. It's not easy. And I really feel for the Greek people who also, it's not just the outside, it's also a fear that is inside, that is saying, I
Mhm.
can't do this, I can't go against, what will people say? But also this fear is like also underneath the skin, to go against, to do something like that. But and for me, I had to face that fear because I was born in Greece. I went there to school and everything, university. So I had this fear of coming out and saying, it's so much more than I believe in. And for many years, I had kept my website secret that you couldn't find. But somehow an auntie found the website and went to my mother and said, with the website, and said, look what your daughter is doing. And a book written by an abbot saying that anything alternative is devil's work. So you can imagine, but luckily my family were just like more open, because that book,
Wow.
that abbot was very extreme. So I can feel for people who want to step and walk their path, that they have to overcome a very big conditioning that is generational too. And here in Scotland now, we are celebrating and honoring the people, the women who were burned as witches. We are creating um, awareness about that, and there is a big movement, and that happened hundreds of years ago, 300, 200, 300 years ago in the 18th century. But in Greece, I think people are still maybe not burned, but there is the fear that the community will exorcise me. If I do something like that, my family will be so upset. Nobody will speak to me. And for some people, this is still the reality. And I bet in Egypt is very much the same too.
Yeah. Yeah. In Egypt, it can be even more dangerous because they don't have quite the same rule of law, and they're not beholden to the EU or human rights in the same way. Their frame of reference for human rights is more skewed towards the Middle East, which, we know is not part of most international conventions for fair treatment and human rights. So it is, we are in, I think that's also something that the myth of progress makes people think, is that like oppression is in the past, it's something that's over. And that's not even true in the West, as we're seeing in the United States at the moment. So how could it be true in other countries, and people, I think, are just so unaware of how far we still have to come. But at the same time, I think I can see the trajectory. One of my friends is Christopher Hughes. He revived the Druid order in Anglesey in Wales. And he gave a talk at a conference I was at back in March called Sacred Space about sort of the evolution of that, and how it took over 200 years of the first person saying, "Wait, the Druids were real. They were doing important things. Maybe we should do them again." And everyone kind of laughed him off and said, "Oh, that's very poetic and sweet, but probably not possible." And it took 2 to 3 generations after him for someone to pick it back up and say, "Hey, this guy said some really good things. Maybe we should consider them." And now, about 250 years total after that first initiatory, his name was Yola Morgana. He said, "This was real. Druids were real. We should do more about it." 250 years after him, Christopher Hughes comes around and says the same thing. And the Obod, Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, grew up around the same period. And Christopher Hughes is a member of that organization as well. I'm a member as well in the Bardic grade. And it took that long. And I think Greece is maybe a little bit behind that yet. I think it's maybe another 100 to 200 years behind the UK in its level of acceptance. So I do think that women like you and I don't say this in a hubristic, oh, I hope I'm remembered, but I do think we will be part of, in 3, 4, 5 generations from now, they'll find our writings, they'll find our books, they'll find maybe even these podcasts. Hopefully, digital things like this will survive, and they will feel more empowered to step into their power because of people like us who did it in a time where it wasn't so easy.
Yeah, yeah, very much so, very much so. And I think for me, in my shamanic path that comes from my father's side, it was always passed from, father to son, and the women knew how to make the herbs and the herbal medicine and everything else, but they were not allowed to do anything, any of the magical tradition. That was always left to the men. And basically, what they used to say was that if a woman does anything involving, magic, or, what we now call shamanism, but that's not the Greek word, so they didn't have that term, is like, is going to be bring bad luck. So women were not allowed. And when I started doing shamanic work, I went to my father and I said, can you please share with me what my great grandfather taught you? Because I've been to all these different traditions, around the world, and my own tradition, you're telling me I'm not allowed to know. And my mother even said to him, she's doing it anyway. Why don't you just give it? And he said, well, my grandfather said that it's unlucky for women to do it and you shouldn't be doing it. And then I said, look, we don't have a brother. It's just 3 girls. So you forgot so much already from your grandfather. So it's going to be forgotten. And it's something that you need to pass on. And then eventually, it took 2 years of me speaking to the deities and saying, please help me. I'm heartbroken about this. I've learned from so many different teachers, and my own family is not teaching me because I'm a woman. And then eventually, after 2 years, my father said, the signs came, and they were so clear. And he said, okay, I'm going to start teaching you. So things change, things do change. And it is very much a patriarchal world too there, but things are changing, and each person who is doing the work is making a difference.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm very excited to continue to dive into your work on a personal note. Tell our listeners where they can find your work. I'll tell them your website again if you have any social media and if you have anything coming up in 2026 that you want to talk about. I think this episode will come out in November. So if you have anything you want to share, that would be fantastic.
Yes, so for those people who wish to work with the ancient Egyptian mysteries, I have a series of webinars. They are starting live in September. So November, you will already have done some, but they are once a month, and you can go and also watch the previous ones. And they are very focused. You learn about the mystery and the way they saw things, and the teaching, but also there is a spiritual practice, because we can only feel the teaching through the spiritual practice. So that's part of that, and it's for people who want to have an introduction into the mysteries, not necessarily follow the path of the initiate. That might be there in their heart too, but it's just basically for everyone, every person who is on a spiritual path and wish to learn more and get in touch with these teachings. And then in 2026, I'm teaching the path of the initiate, which is a bigger commitment because it's like fast, but you can just start and then maybe go do something else and then come back to it. There is no obligation. There's never any obligation. Isis says, this is an invitation. I'm just holding a door open. If you won't come, have a look, sit and see if this chair fits your body. And if not, walk away, find the next thing. It's really an invitation. And so this beautiful teaching starts with a spiritual path of Isis, both for women and men. It's open for everybody. Isis bestows the Heka, and that's how she's the teacher of this work. And it starts in person in March, and April is online. Um, and in 2026, there are many things going to happen as we go on. There's a community of initiates of the living light who have been working with me, for some of them for many years. Some people are new, so you can join that community once you do the first course.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah, and we meet once a month, and we do work together online, so everybody can attend. And there's also now these initiates are starting their own circles, and they do the practices together and the rituals together, so it can be very beautiful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to I hope I'm going to be able to join you for some online lectures, especially after I'm going to Greece soon as of recording this in September. So I feel like that's going to give me more answers. I'm going to have some time to go back to some of these sacred sites and commune, and I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elise. Thank you for this wonderful place, this podcast, the energy, the flow, the questions, the whatever we did also in the etheric realm, because I felt so much light coming from this discussion. And thank you to everyone who's watching, because we're all co-creating something together. And as you said, we're making a difference for anybody who wishes to step onto the path and they can't. And that is a really wonderful thing, to say that anytime we do a spiritual practice, a ceremony, even us having this beautiful chat, so many things come through our voices, so much light, is we're doing this also for anyone who can't do that. Anyone who is not able to sit in a circle, to do ceremony, to listen to something like that. But we are doing it for everyone. And that is something I want to ask the listeners who are doing this work. Just know that whenever you do this work, you're doing it for all those people who can't, maybe because they're not interested, or maybe because they live in a place like Greece or Egypt or somewhere in the world where they're not able to do it because of the social constraints or whatever reason.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. It's so true. We're so connected in this world to each of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elise.
Thank you for seeking Noumena with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elise Wells to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnoumena.com.